Hey everyone, and welcome to the unit. If you're a student just opening this module and wondering what to expect, you're in exactly the right place. Today we're talking about one of the most fascinating, chaotic, and culturally vital figures in Indigenous storytelling, the trickster archetype. Before we get into the specific stories, what exactly is a trickster? Basically, they're characters in our collective mythos, or myth, who just flat out refuse to follow the rules. They defy normal behavior and use secret knowledge to play tricks on everyone around them. And a quick side note here about theology versus mythology. In Western society, we hear the word myth and immediately think fake story. We need to shake that habit out right now. For many Indigenous cultures, these stories are much closer to theology. They aren't just fairy tales, they're deep foundational spiritual truths that explain how the universe works and how we're supposed to live in it. So back to tricksters. Chances are you probably already know a few global tricksters. Take Loki from Norse mythology, the ultimate shape-shifting agent of chaos, or Anansi from West African and Caribbean folklore. Anansi is usually a spider, which is a perfect example of anthropomorphism, which is where you give human characteristics to an animal so they can talk, sing, and outsmart their enemies. This is very commonly used in Indigenous stories. Then there's Wukong from Chinese mythology, who he has rocking superhuman strength and 72 different transformations. Do you notice a pattern here? Right? So they all share incredible ability for transformation. When we look at tricksters in Indigenous stories, that shape-shifting is huge. It means that they aren't going to be boxed into one physical form or one gender. They can slip through boundaries, adapt to anything, any stories, and build bridges between the spirit world and the human world. However, it is very crucial to understand that these aren't just one figure wearing different masks. Each First Nation has its own distinct, culturally specific trickster. For instance, on the West Coast, we'll often hear stories of Raven. For the Cree Nation, you have Wisakichak. For their Ojibwe, it is Nenebush. And for the Mi'kmaq Nation, there is Glooskap. So what's the actual point of the trickster? Basically, they're cultural teachers. But they teach by pushing boundaries and breaking all the rules. Instead of sitting down for a preachy lecture on how to be perfect, the trickster teaches us about life by making the absolute worst, most ridiculous mistakes. They push back against the ways things are supposed to be done, showing us the real consequences of our actions by being a walking example of exactly what not to do. So let's look at two specific stories to see this in action. First up, we have The Shivering Tree by John McLeod. It follows Nenebush, a trickster who is incredibly clever, but let's be honest, his ego gets the better of him. A sorcerer, known as the Juggler, actually cons him into removing his own eyes. Suddenly blind, Nenebush has to figure out how to bounce back. He ends up striking a respectful deal to borrow an owl's eyes, and eventually outsmarts his enemy by disguising himself as a harmless old man. The Juggler is left totally blind and waiting for eternity, eventually turning into the poplar tree. That's actually why poplar tree leaves are always shivering in the wind today. Although these stories are incredibly fun to listen to and read, they aren't just for entertainment. They are actually essential community teachings. On one level, it serves as an etiology, a story that explains natural phenomena, like why owls are nocturnal or why that tree shakes. But on a deeper level, it's also a warning. It shows how arrogance makes us vulnerable, reminding the audience that surviving really comes down to humility and relying on your community. Then, next up, we have Harold R. Johnson's Wisakichak Trickster story. This is a great example of magic realism, where supernatural things happen right in the middle of a normal modern setting. In this case, Wisakichak actually loses a sacred bag of stories because he gets too distracted watching TV. While he's out looking for the bag, he comes face to face with the harsh modern realities of colonization. There was a buffalo trapped in a park, a poisoned wolf, and a bear eating out of the garbage. It's pretty bleak, but true to form, Wisakichak uses his classic trickster resourcefulness. He manages to revive a dying dreamcatcher story, sells it to buy a massive TV, and then uses that screen to hypnotize the fox who stole his bag in the first place. This perfectly captures a massive concept called survivance. Survivance is the idea that Indigenous culture isn't just a tragic history of survival. It's actually an active, adapting, living presence that refuses to be erased. So by having Wissahichak use the exact same modern, capitalist tool that distracted him to win back his culture, the story empowers the audience to reclaim their own narratives from mainstream media. So to wrap up, you just have to remember the trickster is your guide. Through their mess-ups, they teach us how to stay grounded, they teach us how to rely on our communities and adapt to whatever the world throws at us. So guys, enjoy the readings and good luck with the unit. Thank you for listening.